Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. Today, we're going to take a look at a very interesting organization, the United Nations Association of the United States of America, and also look at some of the key sustainable development goals that were developed by the United Nations in 2015. My guest is an expert on all of these topics. My guest today is Teena Halbig. Ms. Halbig is the immediate past president of the Kentucky Division of the United Nations Association of the USA. She's a businesswoman. She's also the past president of the League of Women Voters of Louisville. Teena Halbig, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you. I'm glad to be with you.
The national organization, the United Nations Association of the USA, you and I have been involved with it for decades now, and full disclosure, maybe I've been involved decades. You came in a little later, but the UNA USA is the largest, or one of the largest national nonpartisan foreign policy associations in the United States. It's a 501c3 organization, has about 25,000 members around the country and over 200 chapters and groups, university campuses, and that type of thing. What is your role today with the Kentucky division of the UNA USA?
Well, I'm the current vice president after serving 6 years as UNA USA Kentucky president. I'm also involved with the National United Nations Association and their ethics chair and past advocacy chair, current vice advocacy chair, on the nominating committee. It goes on and on and on. But my role recently was helping to celebrate the United Nations 75th anniversary. And we did that in October to highlight UN Day and also UN Human Rights Day. And it's the future we want. It's the UN we need. And for that, we held our conference, which was on the Sustainable Development Goal number 5 for gender equity and empowerment of women, dealing with human trafficking and sexual exploitation. We also added on SDG number 6, which is for clean water and sanitation, because we've begun to look over the past year or so at something called PFAS, per or polyfluorinated alkyl substances. And these substances have a massive public health threat that is not only local and national, but is global in scope. And so we're now wanting to focus even more on the clean water issue.
Teena, I remember that United Nations Day program that you were talking about. That was an excellent program. It was done, of course, virtually because of the COVID-19 problem, but it was really an outstanding program. You had a good participation. I remember, I think there were about 150 to 200 participants who participated in some or part or all of the program. And even the governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, did a special taping to share with you to focus upon the importance of combating human trafficking. And of course, the United Nations has been in the forefront of doing that for decades now, and also to focus on clean water. But it was really an outstanding program. This is an annual program you do as a public service each year to help people better understand UN Day and these topics, correct?
Yes, yes. We were very fortunate that Governor Beshear took his time to do the taping for us since he couldn't be with us in person and we were doing everything virtual. So during this time of the pandemic, it was really, really greatly appreciated that he took the time to do that and point out our works on human trafficking and our works on clean water. And he very much has been with us in the past and wants to continue to be with us in the future.
This is extremely important. And I might mention too that the official UN Day is October 24th, and there are literally tens of thousands of these programs around the world that aren't maybe not on October 24th, but around that time, you know, a week or two, week before, a week after, whatever, focusing on these topics. And that's the role of the United Nations Association, the USA, to help provide objective information about these international issues and how they impact our lives and what the role of the UN is to deal with them. And it's so important that we learn about them. And of course, our viewers can go to the website at unausa.org to get more information about UNA. If people want to become members, if they're students, they can become members at no cost, but they can go on there and get more information. And of course, the UN, I won't go on too long about the UN, but the UN impacts our lives every day. We don't realize it. We know about maybe the 12 peacekeeping missions that are in some dangerous areas of the world, or the UN High Commission for Refugees working with over 70 million refugees, or UNICEF, the UN Children's Fund, helping with maternal and child health care programs. But Rotary International has teamed up with the UN agencies to eliminate the scourge of polio. The UN helps us move aircraft, ships, mail, and weather information around the world. That these are vital services, but we don't hear about these services, and that's a tremendous role that UNA USA plays. And of course, our viewers can go to the website un.org for more information on that. Teena, you mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals, and I am so glad you did. You've got a slide on that, and we're going to bring it up. And let's talk about not all 17 of them, but talk about the general terms, and two in particular you want to focus on. That
well, it was it was in 2000 that the first framework was created by the United Nations, all 193 countries, and they voted to lay out this framework from 2000 to 2015 for the Millennial Development Goals. And then from 2015 to 2020, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, sometimes they're referred to as SDGs, sometimes they're referred to as global goals. We have focused on number 5, and which we have worked on human trafficking for quite some years. We're looking to have a cyber patrol as well. We are focusing on Sustainable Development Goal number 6 for clean water and sanitation, specifically looking at the PFAS, the per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. You could go to the next slide. And in this slide, we will see that the forever chemicals are addressed as PFAS, and they are a massive public health threat. At the bottom, you can see that when we talk about PFAS, the two that are the most information is known about are PFAS and PFOA. The PFOA is the most dangerous, and the PFOA was phased out around 2014 to 2017 and by DuPont, and it was replaced with C8. But C8 was so bad that it was pretty much immediately banned. However, it is still being made in other countries like China. And also, then DuPont created a trademark name, Gen X, which we are seeing more and more of that, especially in Louisville, Kentucky.
Teena, we've got several PFAS and Gen X and that type of whatever. We do have a video that runs for almost 2 minutes that will provide more information on that. So let's go to the video and we'll be right back.
What are PFAS? PFAS, or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, are chemicals used to make products resistant to oil, water, and heat. They are also called perfluorinated chemicals, or PFCs. PFAS were invented by 3M in the 1930s. Today, there are thousands of different PFAS compounds in use, with better-known examples like PFOS, PFOA, PFNA, and PFHXS. Brand names include Teflon and Scotchgard. PFAS are known as emerging contaminants because they are still being studied. The carbon-fluorine bonds in PFAS are very robust and don't break down in the environment. They also last decades in the blood of exposed people, which can cause many health effects. Health effects include complications with pregnancy and an increased risk for problems with the liver, thyroid, and respiratory system. Manufacturers like 3M and DuPont have each settled health claims for hundreds of millions of dollars. More than a dozen locales in Michigan have tested positive for PFAS contamination. Well-known examples include the Wolverine Worldwide waste dumps near Rockford and the Wirt Smith Air Force Base area in Oscoda. Many sites are contaminated from the use of PFAS-laden firefighting foam. Low PFAS levels have been found in raw Great Lakes water. PFAS are unregulated, and there are no federal drinking water standards. Safe exposure levels are widely debated, with the current EPA drinking water advisor level set at 70 parts per trillion. A new CDC report says that level may be 7 to 10 times too high. Michigan is testing all public water systems for PFAS this year.
Teena, that was a fascinating video. I mean, it really was.
It was
I'm
top
still
score.
swimming with all the acronyms, but that's a
It
neat
was
story. I'm not a
top score.
chemist.
I thought I don't even need to say anything. It tells all. I mean, it
Tells
was
the story.
fabulous. And I looked at several more, but that was the best one.
It certainly was, yes. Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is a privately funded, independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. We would encourage our viewers to go to our website at www.globalconnectionstelevision.com to view previous programs. Also, if you're involved with a PBS or community access television station, or perhaps an educational institution that has an intra-campus television hookup, or you just have a computer, you have a website, you like our shows, you want to share them with your friends, family, whomever, please feel free to do so. Global Connections Television is provided at no cost as a public service to help us better understand international issues and how they impact our lives. Today, we're taking a look at the United Nations Association of the USA, the UN, and also we're focusing on gender equality, human trafficking, but we're even more so focusing on clean water and some of the pollution problems we're having, especially with plastics. My guest today is Teena Halbig. Ms. Halbig is the immediate past president of the Kentucky Division of the United Nations Association of the USA. She's a small business woman, and she's also the past president of the League of Women Voters in Louisville. Teena, we've got quite a plate full here to cover, and we'll just jump right back into it. Again, going back to the video, it was very interesting. And I think the next one you have coming up shows how this PFAS affects the family. And we're talking about a family. We're talking about a family in Kentucky or California or in Jakarta or wherever it may be, New Delhi, wherever, that it's the same all around the world. This pollution is out there, these contaminants are out there, and they are deadly. But let's pull up the next slide and you can tell us about how the family is affected with that.
Right. No matter what age you are, no matter how young you are, no matter how old you are being affected every day. If you look at the flow chart here, starting with the tap water, I can tell you that it is not just in tap water, it's in surface water, it's in groundwater, it's in streams, it's in our rivers, it's even in our rainwater, and of course our drinking water and wastewater. It's also in soils and sediment and biosolids. It's in the air and air emissions in airports, industrial sites, electroplating, carpets and furniture and wiring, clothing. It includes your raincoat. It includes any water repellent fabrics, Teflon products that had the cookware. In fact, in 1975, a University of Florida researcher found the fluorinated chemicals in his blood. Well, he was smart enough to call 3M, who was nearby, their company, and it took them 4 years. It wasn't until 1979 that they said, yes, Mr. Guy, you are correct. That is our chemicals that's in your blood. So, but it's also found in food and food wrappers. You know how when you get a hamburger and it's wrapped up, that the grease doesn't come through, but when you eat that grease, you're taking in PFAS chemicals. If the wrapper has them in them, and there have been studies done looking at different companies and fast food, 27 fast food places to rate them. But it's also in your popcorn bag, it's in your pizza boxes, the paper coating companies, consumer products, a lot of cosmetics. It's in the dust, it's in firefighting foam. So you look at this flow chart and it's just everywhere in our environment now. And the ones who are most susceptible, you can go to the next slide. The ones who are the most susceptible are even newborn babies to have these chemicals in their blood, as do several studies from 97% to 98% to 99% of the public in the United States has this in your bloodstream. These chemicals do not break down. That's why they're called forever, because they can live for thousands of years. And the human exposure, as we mentioned, is through food, water, dust, air, or consumer products. Although they're poorly absorbed through the skin, they are absorbed through the skin. This particular slide shows you right in the center about the Environmental Working Group, and you can look at them under www.ewg.org. But they have found testicular, kidney, liver, and pancreatic cancer. You might know that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had pancreatic cancer. Weakened childhood immunity, which definitely reduces the effectiveness of vaccines. Low birth weight, endocrine disruption, increased cholesterol, weight gain in women, and dieting adults. If you look down at the pink one, you will see that is from the Center for Disease Control. And they found the cancers, the liver damage, the decreased fertility, and increased risk of asthma and thyroid disease. So everything came to a head when an attorney by the name of Rob Billett worked in North Carolina, and eventually he represented 3,500 plaintiffs, and they won $670 million because they found that a science panel that was established by the Governor Cooper there, they found that there were 6 linked diseases linked to C8P4, that kidney cancer, testicular cancer, ulcerative colitis, thyroid disease, pregnancy-induced hypertension, that is preeclampsia, and hypercholesterolemia. So anyway, these are very dangerous to our health, so dangerous, in fact, that the National Defense Authorization Act wants to put money forward in tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to help with about 700 military bases here in the United States. And also they will monitor the military personnel on the bases to monitor how much PFOA is in their blood. So any places that had the firefighting foams used are ones that can be very dangerous, and the businesses may become Superfund sites in the future. But in the firefighting foam especially was linked to cancer, liver damage, harm to reproductive system, and harm to the immune system. You hear this over and over again because they have been studied by different entities, and they're all finding that their studies are correlating. So how do we get rid of these? How do we get rid of these forever chemicals? Well, we need them to be taken out of our public water systems. That is for sure. And it is not difficult to use activated granular charcoal filtration. I know in Louisville, Kentucky, it is only used about 3 months out of the year or on an as-needed basis. And that could readily be done 12 months out of the year. And I encourage you to try to get your water company to put in charcoal filtration. However, charcoal filtration will not remove Gen X. So Gen X would need reverse osmosis. And the same should be done also for the wastewater treatment plants, especially big plants like the Morris Foreman wastewater treatment plant that sits on the near the Ohio River and discharges into the Ohio River, where many people draw drinking water. And this is how we could improve the health. So at home, you can use a carbon filtration, reverse osmosis, and anion exchange treatment. So there are ways to remove them. There are things that are coming forward. There are bills in Congress. We have great hope that these will be passed, and we encourage you to talk to your congressional member. You can call the White House operator at 1-202-225-3121 and ask to speak to your congressional member and say that you are concerned about PFAS chemicals and for the health of your family and your children and your future offspring.
And this is a problem, again, here in the United States, in the economically developed countries, but also the developing countries. And we see that they are also, in many of these developing countries, are really becoming the dumping grounds for all of the computer waste that we have and that type of thing. Many of the oceanographers have predicted that plastics have become such a major problem that by it's 2040 or 2050, that there will be more plastics. The weight of the plastics will outweigh the weight of the fish in the ocean. And this is a serious, serious problem. And we need to deal with it as soon as possible because it's not getting any better. It's going to get worse. And so again, this would apply to all the parliamentarians around the world. This would apply to all of the governors in the various countries, the states, whatever, presidents, prime ministers, and just on across the board. But Teena, what else can we do as far as helping to bring people to make them more aware of what the problem is and how they can get involved?
Yes. I wanted to encourage people. One of the simplest things that you could do is to go to Netflix or Amazon and get the movie, watch the movie, Dark Waters. That is the story of how the attorney, Rob Billett, who is played in the film by Mark Ruffalo, and it tells the story of how it took him 20 years to uncover the decades and decades that the information was never revealed by DuPont to the US EPA. Still, investigations are going on there, maybe even involving the FBI for criminal actions. So I know that many people work for DuPont, and they look forward to their salaries and their health care, but there are other people who are suffering and have health maladies and different types of cancers that maybe would never have had those cancers. And in North Carolina, it only costs the people $5 more a week. We're talking $60 a year to have their water filtered. How much does it cost you to go to the doctor's office for even one visit? How much does it cost if you have to have repeated visits? How much does it cost if you have to have chemotherapy? How much does it cost if you have to have surgery? So I think once the public is really aware of this, once your eyes are open and you see that this is everywhere and it can be removed, we can remove in some portions. They have found in studies that if you are drinking the water and they put in the filtration, that the amount of PFOA in your blood decreased. So it does work. It does help. And think of the future of the small children on our planet even now. It's unfortunate that during the pandemic, we have received probably tons of PPE from China, and they contain the surgical gowns contain the C8, so that it's used as a protective measure. So body fluids and blood and things like that, if they get on the outside of the doctor or nurse's outfit, then it doesn't go through to their uniforms or clothing. However, these have to be incinerated somewhere, and or go to a landfill. And so, it looks like we're ending up with a lot more C8 coming over.
Even that is difficult to do, even the elimination of it. Might mention too, before we run out of time, that the United Nations has just launched a new treaty, and it's one on the cleaning up the plastics and cleaning up the oceans. And one thing we need to do is for the United States to join as soon as possible to get into it, because this is a very serious problem. And again, it's one that we're going to discover that we can come up with alternatives. We can come up with substitutes. We find out now that we always thought, well, we will always have to have coal. We'll always have to have drilling for oil. Come to find out, those are filthy fossil fuels that are creating climate change, that are destroying the planet. And we come to find out now that we can have alternative jobs in the solar and the wind energy areas that pay much better. They're safer jobs, and they create more employment. They're actually, so we can eliminate these coal jobs and eliminate these oil jobs and move into these other areas. But Teena, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Bill Miller. Thank you for joining us today on Global Connections Television.